9 Snipers. Author, Wild Wolverine. In the endless desolate snow-capped mountains, there is not a single decent plant in sight. A few goats that have just begun to shed their hair are slowly moving on the cliff, looking for tender shoots buried in the snow. Small stones roll down from time to time, and they will raise your head and stay where you are. Over the decades, the goats here have learned to avoid trails or river valleys, as there are always minefields on flat ground. Lin Huaisheng, wearing a thick coat, crouched behind the artillery mirror, looking at a snow-capped mountain a few hundred meters above the goats. A forward post of the Indian Army was there, and Captain Salim, who accompanied him, sat aside. Check out the map. Is the 25th Indian Division on the hill in front? Yes, there is probably a platoon belonging to the 14th Marathi Light Infantry Battalion. The main force of the 25th Division is still to the east, said Captain Salim. Is there a road behind the mountain? Yes, but it's bad, only in summer. These forward troops have to rely on the 153rd Helicopter Squadron at Udaipur for supplies this month. Once or twice a month. The captain continued. Replied. Polaris. No, it's Mi-17. How far is that mountain from here? Lin Huaisheng asked while calculating in his heart. It is 1.5 kilometers in a straight line. Of course, the drop of the valley cannot be accurately calculated. If you want to walk over, it may take a day. The few roads you can walk are covered with mines, some of them are theirs, some are ours. Lin Huaisheng can now I saw an Indian soldier with a woolen cap sticking out his head from behind the bunker and looking here with his binoculars. Have you ever shot a gun over the years? I haven't fought in the last 10 years. After 1999, both sides have moved the main fortifications to the back of the mountain, and they can't fight anymore. They have a few Cheetah helicopters at the front, which is a problem for us, but each of our battalions is poisonous. Sting missile. Lin Huaisheng thought as he left the observation post, it would be meaningless for any party to launch a large-scale attack on such terrain. The superior sent him to communicate with the Pakistani army. There are many ways to communicate, but Lin Huaisheng just wanted to see the frontier. His request really embarrassed the master, especially the current situation is very dangerous. Finally, the commander of the north thought of a compromise. The half method in the middle, I chose the most peaceful mountain pass in the past 10 years from the map and let the Chinese colonel walk around, and sent Captain Salim of the 23rd Infantry Division to accompany the whole journey. When Lin Huaisheng walked down the hill to observe what he got, he saw that some Pakistani soldiers were burying their heads in preparing weapons, as if there was an exercise. Why, there is a marching exercise today. Lin Huaisheng asked the captain. It's not an exercise. It just so happened that an enemy plane crashed to the east yesterday. Someone saw the pilot parachuting out, and it may have fallen into the mountains. The nearby garrison was asked to look for it. Looking for the pilot. Not only the pilot, but also the wreckage of the plane. Can I go together? The Chinese lieutenant colonel asked directly. Lieutenant colonel, have you ever seen a place more terrifying than the mountains here? Captain Salim said with a smile. This question made Lin Huaisheng feel it is interesting. Captain Salim, I've seen steeper mountains, just 500 kilometers away. Lin Huaisheng said and pointed to the east. Okay, let's go together, the plane just dropped a few kilometers away, I hope I can take you back to the headquarters in time. Will the Indian Army come over? Lin Huaisheng then asked. Generally not. Before June every year, they are not very active. The most worrying thing is the landmines. We have to walk the way the goats often walk, and one more thing, you have to follow me. Salim the captain said, stroking his mustache lightly. There used to be only 11 people in the search team, and the commander was a sergeant. Now, with Lin Huaisheng and Captain Salim, it was just an unlucky number. Captain Salim always carried a submachine gun with him. fighters, while Lin Huaisheng only has binoculars. Sergeant Newman, who led the team, seemed somewhat dissatisfied with Captain Salim's hasty decision. He believed that an unarmed strange foreigner would definitely drag his team down, but he couldn't speak bluntly because of his rank. Lin Huaisheng saw the sergeant's dissatisfaction, so he could only follow quietly. He had to try his best not to make himself a burden. Sergeant Nullman, in his 30s, is fairly familiar with the area and has always been at the forefront, carrying a spare maritime phone and handheld GPS, as well as a conspicuous vintage Steyr 69 sniper rifle. This is an outdated weapon, with an outdated shape and plastic stock, reminiscent of the small caliber rifle on the military pentathlon. Most of the rest of the soldiers except the sergeant carried AK-47 style rifles. Lin Huaisheng has always felt that the mountains here are very similar to the Karakoram Mountains on the western border. The ravines are crisscrossed and the peaks are scattered in disorder. Without GPS, it would be very difficult to find a target 1 kilometer away. A day ago, the Saab 2000 AWACS accurately reported that a plane crashed here, but coordinates alone are not enough. Since the line of actual control was close to zero during the conflict, the dispatched helicopters were easy to spot, so it was only the infantrymen to confirm the actual situation. The team circled around the mountains a few times, and confused themselves a few times. After a discussion, Sergeant Newman finally persuaded Captain Salim to continue to find the plane according to his ideas. Lin Huaisheng did not want to publish about it. The opinion of the terrain and features judgment, after all, I am just a guest. At 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I finally saw a long crash mark on the hillside in the distance. The parts of the plane were scattered all over the hillside, and the front part of the plane landed in a dry river valley. North, which is the direction of the target. But the parachuting pilot was never found. We can find the computer's memory to see if there is any useful information, and we can also take a video, which will have a political effect, the captain said, panting, leaning on a large rock. Will the Indian Army come to destroy it? Asked Lin Huaisheng at the end of the team. Captain Salim was in a bit of trouble. He bowed his head and talked with Sergeant Newman for a few words, and then regained his confidence. He said to Lin Huaisheng, "Probably not, it's not worth it for the wreckage." The group began to look for a way to enter the river valley. After an hour, they finally reached the edge of the river valley. This is a hidden valley with bare hills on both sides. Lin Huaisheng felt that if he did not occupy these commanding heights, he would easily be ambushed. So he politely offered this opinion to Captain Salim, who again asked the sergeant for his opinion, and finally the sergeant decided that the soldiers were tired and could not be left in hypoxia for unrealistic reasons. Tossing up and down in the environment. The Jaguar has remained in the state it was in when it was shot down. The broken turbine engine fell 150 meters behind the plane. When the wind blows, the blades can be seen turning. The soldiers walking in front rushed up, all trying to pry some souvenirs from the cockpit, and the whole team suddenly became a mess. Lin Huaisheng also walked over, took out his camera, and jumped to the right wing that was still intact. From this position, he could see that the driver's seat in the cockpit no longer existed, and it was obviously ejected together with the pilot. Out. There is a large hole under the broken wing on the left, and the metal skin is rolled up inward. It was probably where the missile hit it, or it was damaged by a rock when it fell. Lin Huaisheng was not an expert in this area and couldn't see the way out, so he randomly pressed the shutter and took a few photos. "Sergeant, you have to let your people find the computer's storage, don't let them dismantle other useless things." When Salim spoke loudly, he saw a soldier studying the lights on the landing gear, and a soldier is picking up a deceleration parachute that has been dropped outside. "But Captain, what does the storage box look like?" "How do I know?" "You have to go in and look for it yourself." When Sergeant Newman reluctantly walked towards the cockpit, Lin Huaisheng felt that it was time for him to ease the differences. although he didn't know what the memory looked like. "Sergeant, I can go in and look for it. I have repaired helicopters before, so it should be about the same, right?" Lin Huaisheng said from a high place. Sergeant Newman raised his head and saw Lin Huaisheng shining in the afterglow of the setting sun. Smiled gratefully at Lin Huaisheng. "Thanks to you, what do you need?" A hammer, and an axe." Lin Huaisheng thought for a while and said. "I'm afraid there is no axe." "Then find a big rock." Lin Huaisheng jumped into the cockpit. Without a seat, he could only squat. He roughly knew the structure of the plane. If there was any advanced electronic equipment should be behind your own pilot. The panel here was damaged, so he removed a cathode ray tube on the left that indicated nighttime aiming and laser irradiation without using an axe or a stone. He put his hand in along the data cable and touched it. Bang Bang's compartment is obviously more complicated than imagined. So he proceeded to dismantle the fuel control panel, an aircraft from the 80s, full of switches and gauges throughout the cockpit. "Can't see any ready interface." Sergeant Newman's face appeared outside the cabin, and he kindly asked Lin Huaisheng if he had found the thing. A dull gunshot rang across the river valley, and Sergeant Newman suddenly disappeared from Lin Huaisheng's field of vision. Even in the cockpit, Lin Huaisheng could hear the sergeant's heavy fall to the ground. "What's going on?" Captain Salim can be heard shouting from outside the plane. "An Indian sniper, on the mountain," a soldier said. Lin Huaisheng buried his head in the cockpit and did not dare to look up. He tried to recall all the commanding heights here and the location of the gunshot. Soon there was another shot, still from the same direction, followed by the sound of another soldier falling. Obviously, there is an experienced sniper on a hill here. He first shot the sergeant who was poking his head outside the plane. It must not be because of his rank. Otherwise, he should have killed Captain Salim first, most probably because Sergeant Newman was carrying a green sniper rifle. He probably thought that by killing his colleagues first, he could save himself the trouble of changing positions frequently. Gunshot. Soon there was another shot, still from the same direction, followed by the sound of another soldier falling. Obviously, there is an experienced sniper on a hill here. He first shot the sergeant who was poking his head outside the plane. It must not be because of his rank. Otherwise, he should have killed Captain Salim first, most probably because Sergeant Newman was carrying a green sniper rifle. He probably thought that by killing his colleagues first, he could save himself the trouble of changing positions frequently. By the way, tomorrow is off, smiley face.